All right.
So yeah, they I was recruited to actually record it one time, and I made the mistake of agreeing to it, and I didn't have any help. And so I was like, I was doing the whole thing by myself. I didn't get sleep for like, and then the next day, Rodnell's son was in town, and he was at the Heinz Theater. And so I was like really cranky, you know. I was asking my wife in the hallway at the venue at the Heinz Theater downtown, the cultural district. I said, "Where's the prasadam?" You know, I wanted prasadam. And so you know, she just remembers me being very cranky, and I was like, I was sick for like 2 weeks after that because I didn't get any sleep. I was up all night. I know not to do that again because I'm old. You know, it's like 9 o'clock is a new midnight for me. But what to speak of like staying up for 24 hours?
Right.
Okay,
Can you
we're
kind of
gonna
come and go
start
as you
here.
please?
What's that?
For people just going in there, can you kind of come and go as you please?
Oh yeah, yeah. Unless you're
Cool.
recording it, and then you have to be there all the time.
No, no doubt. No doubt. Especially with no help.
No help at
They should have
all.
mentioned that detail.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Well, I should
you
have figured
know,
it out. You know, it's like nobody's gonna stay up at like 2 o'clock in the morning to help you out. You know. So how have you been doing? How's your family doing and everything?
pretty good, pretty good. Been a
That's
lot of
good.
adversity, but it's all good.
Yeah. Everybody's got a lot of adversity all the time in this material world. It's just
No
something that
doubt.
happens, you know, you gotta like roll with punches
Yep.
sometimes.
Part of
Okay,
the
so I think we're
process.
gonna start here. We'll just read the English. You can start for the first one, but this is if you remember, this is right before Ashwatthama threw the Brahmastra weapon. And so now like Ashwatthama threw the Brahmastra weapon at Uttara, who had in her womb the last remaining Pandava dynasty heir. You know, like Parikshit was in her womb, and so he wanted to kill that off. You know, and so he threw the Brahmastra. So go ahead and read the translation, text 21.
Thereupon a glaring light spread in all directions, and it was so fierce that Arjuna thought his own life in danger, and so he began to address Lord Sri Krishna.
Translation: Arjuna said, "Oh my Lord, Sri Krishna, you are the almighty personality of Godhead. There's no limit to your different energies. Therefore, only you are competent to instill fearlessness in the hearts of your devotees. Everyone in the flames of material miseries can find the path of liberation only in you." Go ahead.
Arjuna is aware of the transcendental qualities of Lord Sri Krishna, as he had already experienced them during the Kurukshetra war, in which both of them were present. Therefore, Arjuna's version of Lord Krishna is authoritative. Krishna is almighty and is especially the cause of fearlessness for the devotees. A devotee of the Lord is always fearless because of the protection given by the Lord. Material existence is something like a blazing fire in the forest, which can be extinguished by the mercy of the Lord Sri Krishna. The spiritual master is the mercy representative of the Lord. A person, therefore, put it out. A person, therefore, burning in the flames of material existence may receive the rains of mercy of the Lord through the transparent medium of the self-realized spiritual master. The spiritual master, by his words, can penetrate into the heart of the suffering person and inject knowledge transcendental, which alone can extinguish the fire of material existence.
You ever heard of a TV movie called The Day After?
Nope.
It's called The Day After. It was, when were you born? This is probably before your time. What year?
89. 89.
79?
89, yeah.
89. Okay. Yeah, this
Yeah.
movie came out in like 1983 or 4. It was about a nuclear war here in America, and it was a made-for-TV movie. And it's about the Russians, launching a bunch of ICBMs at Kansas City, and they showed the Kansas City Royal Stadium, or yeah, I think it was the Royal, or it was the football Chiefs, the football stadium there. That's the same stadium that was back there then, because that's kind of an old complex there. They've got the football and the baseball in the same area. But they were looking up and they saw these missiles coming in, and then there was a big mushroom cloud, and and so they were all like devastated, and like a lot of people were dying of radiation sickness and stuff, and most of the town was completely leveled. And then there was this guy in Lawrence, Kansas. So Lawrence, Kansas is not too far away from Kansas City, but they radioed back and forth, and anyway, this guy kind of like made the trek. He saw the nuclear explosion in Kansas City, and all these people were just wandering around after the explosions, and their entire lives were ruined, and a lot of them were sick and dying, and I remember devotee. It was a big deal back then. A lot of people had to get psychological counseling, actually hire professionals because it was a big deal. They only had like three networks, back then: ABC, NBC, and CBS. And so this was on a major network television broadcast. And the devotees and I were out on the road, and we stopped and spent, and we went to a college union and watched it in the television room at the union student facility,
Mhm.
and afterwards, my spiritual master, he was like commenting on it, and this kind of has something to do with this verse, devotees always fearless. And so these people were so bummed out because their entire lives were put upside down, and they didn't have anything left, and they didn't have any hope for the future, and they're just like so depressed. And so my spiritual master said the karmis have no hope, but the devotees have no fear. So that's
pretty
kind of
powerful.
yeah, and it's true, because sometimes devotees would ask Prabhupada, what if a nuclear bomb went off? And Prabhupada would just say in a very low voice, Shadare Krishna. Devotee has no fear. What's the worst they could do? Kill the body, but we're not the body, we're spirit soul. And if you read the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, don't worry about all these people that you're so worried about. Your grandpa and your martial arts teacher, they're all going to get better bodies, they're already old, and they'll get refreshed bodies, and they'll live on another planet, which is way better than the one we're living on now. So, forget about it. Just do your duty and fight because I asked you to. Just like, if you ask Zannu to do something, he says, why should I do that? And he said, because I told you to. So that's the kind of thing that Arjuna, he said, just forget everything that I told you. He gave him so many different he told him so many different
basically, like, you don't know what's best for you. We don't know what's best for ourselves. God does.
Yeah, God, he knows what we want, what we need the most. And so if we think we have a better idea than God, then immediately we're pretty proud of our own ability, and that's a disqualification. But Prabhupada said, I quoted this and put it up on Facebook there. I think you liked it. Different processes of religion and purificatory processes by cultivation of knowledge, meditation, of mystic yoga, etc. But one who surrenders to Krishna doesn't have to execute so many methods.
Yeah.
Simply have to surrender to Krishna, saving from unnecessarily wasting time. Everything else is just a waste of time. We only have a certain amount of time and energy on this planet. And so if we, instead of like spending time doing all kinds of things on the internet or sports, or following movie stars or something, or whatever people are into, or even speculating about what should I do, and based, don't worry about any of that. just forget about what your mind is telling you to do or chasing after, and just surrender to Krishna, do what he wants to do, and then we'll be saved from we don't have that much time on this planet, so we have to make the best use of that amount of time that we have. I'm old, so it gets really I was looking at my watch today. It said your walking is not very steady lately. You've got a low walking ability, and so you'll probably fall down within the next year or so. You might fall down, and so but I don't take my watch's advice too much, because it says it also says you made your stand goal. Way to go, Shik. Nice job. Okay, I stood up a couple times, during the day. And then it has this mindfulness thing, some kind of new age bullshit, like they're talking about, this is time for mindfulness at the end of the day, and, you open up that app on your phone. It's just some kind of new age thing, I don't like it. I don't like those terms, mindfulness and wellness and stuff like that, Why don't you chant Hare Krishna, that would be good. Remind me of Krishna, but the phone doesn't do that, they'll tell you everything else that. But that's just reminded me of that. A devotee has no fear. So once you go to the next verse here, that would be text 23.
Okay. Is it you or me? You want me to read it?
Yeah, go ahead and read the translation.
You are the original personality of Godhead who expands himself all over the creations and is transcendental to material energy. You have cast away the effects of the material energy by dint of your spiritual potency. You are always situated in eternal bliss and transcendental knowledge.
Purport. The Lord states in the Bhagavad Gita that one who surrenders unto the lotus feet of the Lord can get released from the clutches of nescience. Krishna is just like the sun, and Maya, or material existence, is just like darkness. Wherever there's the light of the sun, darkness or ignorance at once vanishes. The best means to get out of the world of ignorance is suggested here. The Lord is addressed herein as the original personality of Godhead. From him, all other personalities of Godhead expand. The all-pervasive Lord Vishnu is Lord Krishna's plenary portion or expansion. The Lord expands himself in innumerable forms of Godhead and living beings, along with his different energies. But Lord Sri Krishna is the original primeval Lord from whom everything emanates. The all-pervasive feature of the Lord experienced within the manifested world is also a partial representation of the Lord. Paramatma, therefore, is included within him. He is the absolute personality of Godhead. He has nothing to do with the actions and reactions of the material manifestation because he is far above the material creation. Darkness is oops. Got to turn down my thing here. Darkness is a perverse representation of the sun, and therefore the existence of darkness depends on the existence of the sun. But in the sun proper, there is no trace of darkness. As the sun is full of light only, similarly, the absolute personality of Godhead, beyond the material existence, is full of bliss. He is not only full of bliss, but also full of transcendental variegatedness. Transcendence is not at all static, but full of dynamic variegatedness. He is distinct from the material nature, which is complicated by the three modes of material nature. He is Parama, or the chief. Therefore, he is absolute. He has manifold energies, and through his diverse energy, he creates, manifests, maintains, and destroys the material world. In his abode, however, everything is eternal and absolute. The world is not conducted by the energies of or powerful agents by themselves, but by the all-powerful with all energies. Go ahead.
Cool.
Why don't you read the translation and the purport?
Okay. And yet, though you are beyond the purview of the material energy, you execute the four principles of liberation characterized by religion, and so on, for the ultimate good of the conditioned souls. Purport: the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, out of his causeless mercy, descends on the manifested world without being influenced by the material modes of nature. He is eternally beyond the material manifestations. He descends out of his causeless mercy only to reclaim the fallen souls who are captivated by the illusory energy. They're attacked by the material energy, and they want to enjoy her under false pretext, although in essence the living entity is unable to enjoy. He is eternally the servitor of the Lord, and when he forgets this, he's an illusion. The Lord descends to eradicate this false sense of enjoyment and thus reclaim conditioned souls back to Godhead. That is the all-merciful nature of the Lord for the fallen souls.
Translation. I'll read the verse and the purport too, I guess. Thus you descend as an incarnation to remove the burden of the world and to benefit your friends, especially those who are your exclusive devotees and are constantly wrapped in meditation upon you. Purport. It appears that the Lord is partial to his devotees. Everyone is related with the Lord. He is equal to everyone, yet he is more inclined to his own men and devotees. The Lord is everyone's father. No one can be his father, and yet no one can be his son. The devotees are his kinsmen, and his devotees are his relations. This is his transcendental pastime. It has nothing to do with the mundane ideas of relations, fatherhood, or anything like that. As mentioned above, the Lord is above the modes of material nature, and thus there is nothing mundane about his kinsmen and relations in devotional service. Go ahead and read the next verse and purport.
O Lord of Lords, how is it that this dangerous effulgence is spreading all around? Where does it come from? I do not understand it. Purport: anything that is presented before the personality of Godhead should be so done after due presentation of respectful prayers. That is the standard procedure, and Sri Arjuna, although an intimate friend of the Lord, is observing this method for general information.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing to me, like Arjuna's talking all this philosophy. Meanwhile, there's an atomic bomb coming toward him. It's like the Flash, everybody else would be freaking out, but Arjuna's like respectfully posing these questions and saying that Krishna is the source of all energies, and all this stuff. And meanwhile, he's about ready to get killed. I mean, that's what he thinks too, but he's got such a level head that he just respectfully asks Krishna a question like that, They have a totally different, standard of etiquette back then. They were respectful. Nobody has any respect at all nowadays.
No.
Even for like for politicians, everybody hates all the politicians. But even if it doesn't matter which politician it is, they're put there by Krishna, so they must have had. So we should respect that because it's Krishna's energy that's putting him in that position. Just like when Sanatana Goswami played hooky from the Qazi, he was a magistrate for the Qazi, the Nawab of Bengal, and he decided he didn't want to be involved in government affairs anymore. He wanted to see Lord Chaitanya eventually. And so he tried to get out of it, and he went with some Brahmanas and was reading Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, just like you and I are doing now. And he was hanging out with these Brahmanas, and the king found out about it, and he busted him, He broke into his place where they're sitting there reading, and he said, "What are you doing? I got all this important business." And, the thing is, when he walked in, even though he's a meat eater and a malecha and a, lowest class, type of person, all the Brahmanas stood up to respect him because they knew that he's put there in that position by Krishna himself. So everybody should be respectful, but nobody has any respect. Just like Rodney Dangerfield said, I get no respect at all. But that was his line. You're too young to know Rodney Dangerfield, but he was.
Oh no, I know him. He's awesome.
Yeah, he's pretty funny. Okay,
Yeah.
So text 27. I guess we'll just take turns reading the purport and verse. Personality of Godhead said, "Know for me that this is the act of the son of Droṇa." That would be Ashvatthama. He has thrown the hymns of nuclear energy, Brahmastra. See, just by a mantra, you can make a atomic reaction. You can create nuclear fusion or fission. I don't know which one it was, but to be able to do that, that's an art. Nobody knows that. And even the son of Droṇa, he knew how to throw it, but he didn't know how to withdraw it. So, Arjuna had to use his own powers in order to retract both of them. You see, he doesn't know how to retract the glare. He has helplessly done this, being afraid of imminent death. I think they're both after him because he had beheaded the sons of Draupadi. And so they, Arjuna and the previous verses were saying, I'll have his head on a platter for you and can stand on his head.
Yeah.
Purport.
I remember that.
The Brahmastra is similar to the modern nuclear weapon manipulated by atomic energy. The atomic energy works wholly on total combustibility, and so the Brahmastra also acts. It creates an intolerable heat, similar to atomic radiation, but the difference is that the atomic bomb is a gross type of nuclear weapon, whereas the Brahmastra is a subtle type of weapon produced by chanting hymns. It's a different science, and in the days gone by, such science was cultivated in the land of Bharatvarsh. The subtle science of chanting hymns is also material, but it has yet to be known by the modern material scientists. Subtle material science is not spiritual, but it has a direct relationship with the spiritual method, which is still subtler. The chanter of hymns knew how to apply the weapon as well as how to retract it. That was perfect knowledge. But the son of Dronacharya, who made use of this subtle science, did not know how to retract. He applied it, being afraid of his imminent death, and thus the practice was not only improper, but also irreligious. As the son of a Brahmana, he should not have made so many mistakes, and for such gross negligence of duty, he was to be punished by the Lord himself. They never punished him, though. They did punish him. They actually made him immortal. He's still walking around somewhere. Ashvatthama is.
They humiliated him.
Yeah, and he's still alive, He can't die.
That's part of his punishment.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild.
I know. Okay, go ahead and read 28.
Oh, Arjuna, only another Brahmastra can counteract this weapon. Since you are expert in military science, subdue this weapon's glare with your own weapon. For the atomic bombs, there's no counter weapon to neutralize the effect, but by subtle science, the action of a Brahmastra can be counteracted, and those who were expert in military science in those days could counteract a Brahmastra. The son of Dronacharya did not know the art of counteracting the weapon, and therefore Arjuna was asked to counteract it by the power of his own weapon.
Yeah, like modern day nuclear weapons, the only thing they can do is like try to shoot it out of the sky before it reaches the earth, But they had a science they could neutralize it, like they had fire weapons, and they could counteract the fire weapon with a water weapon. And they could, they had these different weapons that would act as a countermeasure. It's like, it kind of reminds me of that George Carlin, he did this bit about the hippy dippy weatherman. It says hippy dippy weather, man, and he said, I got a line of thunder showers coming from the north, but we also got a line of Russian ICBMs coming in from the north too. So I wouldn't sweat the thunderstorms. They can't counteract those. All right, so text 29. Sutta Goswami said, hearing this from the personality of Godhead, Arjuna touched water for purification, and after circumambulating Lord Sri Krishna, he cast his Brahmastra weapon to counteract the other one. Go ahead and read this one and the purport.
When the rays of the two Brahmastras combined, a great circle of fire, like the disk of the sun, covered all outer space and the whole firmament of planets. The heat created by the flash of the Brahmastra resembles the fire in the sun globe, which is exhibited at the time of cosmic annihilation. The radiation of atomic energy is very insignificant in comparison to the heat produced by the Brahmastra. The atomic bomb explosion can at utmost blow up one globe, but the heat produced by the Brahmastra can destroy the whole cosmic situation. The comparison is therefore made to the heat at the time of annihilation.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. It could destroy the whole universe. But that's you ever seen did you ever see that movie that came out? It's on streaming service right now. It's called Oppenheimer.
I did not. I heard about it though.
Yeah, you know that Oppenheimer, the actual the person himself, that was working on the atomic bomb, he said when that blew up, he quoted the Gita. He said, "Time I am, destroyer of worlds." He quoted the Bhagavad Gita, and so
Yeah.
that's why I want to watch that movie, just because that one line. But yeah, he apparently knew about the Vedas. Some more intelligent people have read the Vedas, like Einstein read the Veda. Yep. Einstein said, I want to know how how God created the universe. Everything else is inconsequential. He also said the universe there's two things that are infinite: the universe and human stupidity. And I'm still not sure about the universe. In other words, he was sure about how stupid the human beings were, but not about the universe.
No doubt.
Text 31. All the population of the three worlds was scorched by the combined heat of the weapons. Everyone was reminded of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam fire, which takes place at the time of annihilation. Yeah, I think that's like when the Brahma's day ends, like every 4.3 billion years. There's like a giant fire, and then all the water on all the planets is evaporated. And that's the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam fire. Purport. The three worlds are the upper, lower, and intermediate planets of the universe. Although the Brahmastra was released on this earth, the heat produced by the combination of both weapons covered all of the universe, and all the populations on all the different planets began to feel the heat excessively and compared it to that of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam fire. No planet, therefore, is without living beings, as the less intelligent materialistic men think. My mentor, who is Deva Amrita Swami, is this black-bodied devotee who was actually made the temple president of New Vrindavan for a while. He's actually a guru in New Zealand right now. But he wrote an article about the Alvin. The Alvin is a submarine that goes down to the bottom of the ocean, like really deep. And the scientists in the Alvin, the water there is like super pressurized, and it's like super hot too, because it was right next to a volcanic vent at the bottom of the Marianas Trench. And it's really, really hot and pressurized down there. And so they just, at their whim, they didn't think they would find anything, but they took a sample of the water and they analyzed it. They looked at it in a microscope and they saw all kinds of living organisms. It was like 600 degrees and there are living beings swarming in there. And so that's why Prabhupada said that, this whole thing about sterilizing things with steam that they used to do, I don't know if they still do that, but it doesn't work, because living entities can exist anywhere, even on the sun. And so, when they brought up the temperature, when the temperature went down, they all died. But when they took another sample and brought the temperature back up again, they all started thriving. And when the pressure went down, they died. But when the pressure was like, hundreds of times more than what the normal pressure is, then they started thriving. Somehow or other, all the proteins in the cells didn't break down. So that just shows that the living entity can adjust to any kind of circumstance in the material universe. And
that's perfect.
Yeah, I'm reading these scientific articles from this scientist. He was a PhD in mathematics, and he wrote a bunch of articles in the 70s and 80s. He wrote this article, I just read it, about like evolution. And evolution is based on the concept that organisms mutate and change in an incremental level, and then they, if it's favorable for the organism, then it'll switch into a whole nother form. Like maybe the frog legs of a lizard will develop into wings of a bird or something. That's the theory, right? But nobody's ever proved that. And there's all kinds of examples in nature. I was just reading this. I put it up on my Facebook page today of this article. He was writing about how these certain things could never happen by a systematic incremental changes. Each change has to be beneficial for the organism, right? Like if you mutate one part of an organism it has to be advantageous, each incremental mutation. Like if a leg was turned into a wing, and but the thing is, he made this example, which has really stuck in my mind for a long time. There's this kind of shrimp. It has a pouch, and the pouch, it takes it with its claw and puts it in this pouch, and the grain of sand on the bottom of the ocean, it sinks onto the pouch, and it's got like tentacles inside the pouch that can feel the sand, the gravity makes, and it, by that behavior, it can tell which way is up. Otherwise, it's deep in the ocean, it doesn't know which way is up or down. So that way the shrimp can navigate. So in order to evolve that, it would have to have simultaneously the mechanism and the behavior. I mean, the behavior of like every time that the shrimp throws off its molts, it loses its exoskeleton. It has to do that again and again. And it has to develop that behavior, and also it has to develop simultaneously that pouch that will be able to help the shrimp navigate. So how can both of those things happen at once? And if something doesn't happen all at once, if both of those things don't happen at once and it's only incremental, how is any kind of intermediate step going to benefit an organism? It wouldn't be very advantageous to that organism. It would be wasting its energy, and it would probably die. So,
Yep.
It's just so much like it's kind of like Stalin, he'd say you invent some crime and then you just make up a story that fits it. That's what the scientists do. But they have a theory, and then they make up this theory, and then they make all the pieces fit together, and they're very stubborn. They won't take any other kind of theory besides the one they got. Of course, there is there is another theory. A lot of times when scientists think of something for a long time, all of a sudden the idea will come right into their mind all at once. And that's kind of like inspiration, It's not coming from an ordinary brain, because our brains don't have enough neurons to actually think like that. But Krishna kind of gives us the answer, And so a lot of those things through intelligence. So everything is coming from all these different designs and all the different abilities and all these different forms are produced by the Supreme Personality. So it's a personal thing, but they'll never accept that because they want to reduce everything down to a mechanical process. But you can't reduce the whole universe and life itself down to a formula. It's not possible.
Very fascinating.
Than that.
Very fascinating. Yeah. And that's a reflection of how the sun is a globe and how it's a planet and the beings can live there. They just adapt to a suitable form.
Yeah. I mean, if living entities can live at the bottom of the ocean when it's 600 degrees, and like a piece of paper would burst into flames at that temperature. But somehow or other, a living entity can exist there if if they have a body that's acclimated to that climate. So, there's living entities everywhere. It says sarvagata. Sarvagata means there's living entities everywhere. So there's, like they speculate, it says that there's no life on these other planets like the moon or Mars. There's living entities there. They just can't see them.
Mhm.
So, I don't use
Pretty
my
awesome.
eyes. I use I like to see through things through the eyes of the Vedas. It's called Chakshus. That means seeing eyes through the authorities. We have a top-down method of understanding things, from the top down, instead of speculating or trying to figure things out with our imperfect senses and like a telescope or a microscope. The soul is not a material thing, and they say it's 1/10,000th the size of the tip of a hair. And even if you could see it in a powerful microscope, you probably wouldn't be able to see it because it's pure spiritual energy. So how can you measure something like that? You can't. But that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. The soul is there, and it's described in the Bhagavad Gita exactly what it is, and it's imperishable. It can't be burnt by any fire. It can't be moistened by water. It can't be withered by the wind. It's eternal. This non-destructive. It's not destroyed when the body is slain. So it passes through our different changes of body. And then when the body gets old and worn out, it just goes into another body according to your karma and what you think of at the time of death. It will just, according to higher authorities and the person's karma and what he thinks about his whole life, you'll get a different body, and hopefully you'll get a body where you don't have to get another material body. You get a spiritual body that's full of knowledge and bliss, instead of the ones we have, which are temporary, full of ignorance and miserable most of the time,
No doubt.
So we're going to stop here, I think, because we're running out of time. We started a little earlier, so it's I got 1 minute and 30 seconds left. Do you have any questions or anything?
No, that was some pretty cool grounds we covered right there. I really
a little
enjoyed
science. It's the science Bhagavatam part. I think it's really cool that they had all these weapons back then, and everybody, all these historians think that they were so primitive back 5,000 years ago. They have no idea how advanced.
Right.
All right, we'll talk to you later. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Zannu. Have a nice evening. Haribo. Talk to you next week. Hare Krishna.
See you next week. What'd you say?
What do you say?
I'm not sure. He has a mouthful of pretzels.
Don't talk with your mouth full, Zannu. Bye.
Haribo pretzels.
Haribo pretzels. I like pretzels too.
Have a good one.
You too.